Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Whisky Roundtable. It is sweet as sugar here tonight as we're stripping it back to basics, the way that the roundtable start with four idiots talking about whiskey in a lockdown. My name is Scott Fitzsimons, and it once again falls to me to pull the ship away from the barge. Tonight is a very special episode as we delve into the secret, weird and wonderful world of whiskey liqueurs. Now, the three quarters of this panel, which are still sitting in the Sydney vicinity, we have some whiskey liqueurs. Thank you to Andrew Milne and the team at South Trade. We're going to go through and have a look. Matt Bailey down in the Victorian quarter of this team has managed to nick some off a local bar, but also might need to dip in and slum it with some rare society casks he said he might open tonight as well. But we're going to kick this away because it is about whiskey liqueurs, and we don't really know what whiskey liqueurs are and what they mean. For some people, they're the gateway drug. They're the bit that drags them into whiskey and really gets them involved in this world. For other people, it's the crack cocaine. It's the addictive thing, the guilty pleasure that they keep going back to, but they're not quite sure if they should admit it in real life. And for other people, it's the ice addiction, the destroyer of all that's beautiful and pure in this world. So we're going to delve into whiskey liqueurs, what they mean to individual people. But pull this one away by saying, ladies and gentlemen, what is in your glass and what does whiskey liqueur mean to you?
I mean, it's a pretty serious topic we're talking about like frozen water addiction, aren't we? Yeah. I
was hoping that was the definition there.
Yeah. You know what? Because the samples didn't arrive, which no fault of Andy's, this is a good old Australia Post. I did pinch some samples off a local bar, and I've gone with King's Ginger to start
them out.
This is okay. It's whiskey now, but I pinched a bit of King's Ginger off them, as well as some bramble liqueur from Kilhoman, which I have had before. It's new make. I don't know if you could call it. They do label it as a liqueur. It is a liqueur, but it's a new make liqueur. So there's different types of liqueur, which we're going to talk about. But I thought I'd finish with that one because it's peated. Anyway.
Ooh, that'll be fun. I'm drinking a West Coast cooler until we get into the liqueurs. Cheers, guys.
Or as Andy said just before we went live, not sure what that is. That brand does not exist. Moving right along.
And I have decanted one of my favorites. My daily drinker, aka Jack Daniels, because wanted to change it up and not drink straight out of the bottle.
I think you mispronounced Fireball then.
Yeah, your daily favorite is Fireball. Good.
Hey, you're gonna get enough airtime tonight. John Prew's going to be kissing your feet by the end of tonight.
I like the approach, Alex, is by decanting everything. If they want to see the label on the stream again, got to pay for it. Get that sponsorship rolling in. Everything else is decanted.
I think I'm the unofficial Jack Daniels representative at the moment.
You are, at least at this round table, that's for sure.
Unofficially, I'll take your check. Thank you.
Yeah.
Andy, what are you drinking?
I follow in the same vein as a starter. I'm on
West Coast coolers?
Fine Little Batuta Bitter.
Ooh.
Yes, very Bondi. Good.
In honor of the state that's allowed to be open. Not we hold it against them in any way.
No. And Scotty, what are you drinking?
I'm just polishing off the last of a Serpent's Kiss from Grifter.
Good beer.
Pilsner. Something fresh and lively because it did hit at least 21 degrees here in Sydney today, so that felt like a reason for celebrating.
It was quite warm.
But I do have, and as per instructions, Milne, I have Sheepdog just out of the freezer, Fireball just out of the freezer, and Dubliner straight up the back shelf. So that's what I'm going to be digging into now.
That was some smooth bloody transitions just then from all three. That was...
All right.
How did this even come up? I can't even remember how this came up that we were going to, let's do whiskey liqueurs. I think I said I wanted to try Sheepdog. Is that how it happened?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Far out. Okay. I
think someone said something like, why doesn't Speyburn make a liqueur? I mean, that was like, we're in awe as how that does not exist.
Because as Jesse's rightly said, we let Old Pulteney do it and they do a bloody damn good job of it.
Do we see that locally? Do we see the Stroma?
No.
Stroma? Yep. Do we see that locally?
We don't. No.
But so there's been already kicked off on the chat here some the old Poltny Strummer, the Schlanta from Lark Distillery, a whiskey liqueur there. Lime Burners have done one. It's a really prominent thing. Who wants to take the mantle and define what a whiskey liqueur is?
I think that's Mr. Matt Bailey.
Oh, I can do it. Yeah, it's essentially a steeped fermented spirit, and it doesn't have to be just whiskey. It can be any sort of spirit, but it's essentially like it's post steeping of spirit, like you would have to the same as you do to oil or to vinegar kind of things. I guess the rules around it are much more relaxed than they are whiskey. I mean, I'd say they're even more relaxed than you can do to a rum. But I mean, it's generally any additive that's added to a whiskey, in this case for whiskey liqueurs, to be classified as a liqueur. It's very simple. It doesn't have to sit in any proof range. As we said before, they're generally between 15 to 50 ABV, percentage alcohol by volume. You often find different ingredients like orange or berries or lime or things like that are added to, or in some cases, fireball. In the case of something like a fireball, cinnamon added or infused with, and sugar. It's always sugar. Yeah, there's almost sugar. Like this is it's always sugar. But there are some liqueurs out there that use very, very low sugar, and there are some that use obviously very, very high, and that would even give something like a Diplomatico a run for its money on how much sugar it has in it. But there are the means of which making it is always just post distillation. It's always like the steeping of. So if you ever had one of those sort of, those like something pretty terrible, some of them like those like chili oil or garlic oil kind of things. It's always like it's not sort of it's not made with the garlic. It's always steeped afterwards, and that's generally the case with these liqueurs as well. But there's a huge divide between whiskey liqueurs. Scotty, you just named a few. I mean, it's not just an international thing. We see Australian ones as well, which is exciting.
Yep, Lime Burners do one. I mean, they're probably the two oldest ones. The Lime Burners, Carry Honey.
Hobart, yeah.
And a lot of the new guys coming through. I want to sort of, it's a weird thing. What I was alluding to in that intro then is that it is the gateway drug for a lot of people. Yeah. Some people, then they get into whiskey and it's like their comfort. Yeah, and then there's, it's like the guilty pleasure, but there's almost like you don't tell your other whiskey friends that you drink whiskey liqueurs. And then there's the people who, sort of think they're the devil. I think the truth is somewhere in the middle there. It's certainly not the latter. I think they're a great entry. But I want to throw out, what was your first, memory with a whiskey liqueur? Like, did you guys have a whiskey liqueur before you had a whiskey? I went the other way. I have to admit, I went into Jameson and Jack and that sort of stuff, and then discovered whiskey liqueurs afterwards.
I think for me it was probably a Glaver or something that was the first whiskey liqueur I ever had. It was something like that. But I'll just say that rather than the first one, I think one of the most memorable whiskey liqueur moments was actually courtesy of you, Scott. You sort of facilitated this happening. You weren't actually the one serving it, but
That's right, because I'd blown up the little inflatable pool and poured all the whiskey liqueur into it before you jumped in. So I wasn't actually there, but I did facilitate it.
This was actually at Whisky Fair 2019, and anyone who's had to stand behind a stand at Whisky Fair knows that you are going to be talking and shouting and talking and serving for 3 whole sessions, and you're going to lose your voice.
Yeah, and
it's full on, and it's a lot of fun. But there was an exact moment. There was like the second hour in on the 3rd session, and we were all just wrecked. And it was actually I'm going to have a mental blank. It was not Ian McKinlay, but Lorene, who came past and was pouring the Athelbros out for people on our stand, and it was like just that exact moment of it running down your throat, all that sort of lovely nuttiness, just when it was just right there and you've been shouting, it was almost like the perfect medicine. So that's not my first one, but one of those moments where you go, that's exactly hit the spot. And I think there's always a place for whiskey liqueurs.
I think my first one was Southern Comfort.
SoCo.
Yeah. And then probably like Wild Turkey Honey was out when I was over there. It was just being released. So that was another memorable one. Jack Daniel's honey, a lot of them do it. A lot of distilleries are doing either a honey or a spiced. But yeah, I think SoCo was my first one.
Yeah.
What about you, Andy?
I think it was probably sneaking little bits of Drambuie from my parents. And that time when they had an alcohol cupboard of lots of things that they just rarely touched, if ever. And so you can if I take a small amount from this, they won't notice. but do it frequently over 3 years, and they probably did notice. But
shit, my mum's on this. I can't say.
Yeah, if they don't know, they're not.
I was an angel. An angel.
Of course, yeah. I was such a good
Andy, something interesting you touched on there, which I just want to talk about for a second. The Drambuie as a product, I think may have been probably my first memory as well, because my mum loved Drambuie, and it was there was this like there's certain whiskey liqueurs on the market like Drambuie or like Soko, but they're not really marketed as such, are they? They're sort of almost standalone. I don't really hear anyone calling Southern Comfort a whiskey liqueur. It is, but it's Southern Comfort.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, most of them are brands in their own right, rather than anything else. So I think
absolutely.
About sort of Jack Daniel's honey and wild turkey honey and things, and
they're associated they're already associated with a whiskey. Jack Daniel's honey.
They're brand extensions out to sort of bring consumers in and then get them onto number 7 or 101
gateway.
But I think Southern Comfort was very much that. Let's just make something that's easy accessible, and I think how many people know what a liqueur is. So for that reason, why bother? Just sort of go. Actually, let's just talk about it as Southern Comfort, and it's a whiskey. It's a sweetened whiskey.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing a lot of.
Sorry,
go, Scotty. No.
I was just like on that point. I often find the ones that are their standalone brands often seem to go better in the market. They have a little bit more because people aren't. I think sometimes say I'm Jack Daniel's. People sometimes feel they're not drinking the pure Jack Daniel's if they're drinking an offshoot of the brand. Whereas if you're drinking Fireball, there's you're drinking the purest version of that brand. And I see a little bit of that in the market as well, which I find quite interesting. But for some brands it works. And you mentioned Athol Bros. I think that's a Ben Romack liqueur. It's not Ben Romack sweetened, and the Bramble is not Kilhoman sweeter. It's standalone brands that really seem to sit quite well.
I guess and we've seen a lot of that, or something like a King's Ginger, where it's that's using, which I'm on right now, which is uses a mixture of honey and ginger and clove and all spices and stuff like that to spice it and to change it. I mean, how do these compare then? I guess in regards to spiced rums or things like that. I mean, they're totally different products, but I mean, spiced rum already has a much more established market. I think. I mean, that's why things like Kraken are massive, and
It doesn't. The spice market category is pretty tiny for the market, and I think there's lots of people trying to enter it. Kraken's probably the only one that's really succeeded, but probably slowly losing market share.
Right.
Now. It's spice rum is a funny one. It comes in waves, and sometimes it's really popular and strong, and sometimes it just absolutely struggles to get in. And there's a couple of brands I know that have tried on many occasions to really drive hard with an extension on their brand and do a spiced, and it's not often gone swimmingly well.
Right.
A couple of questions coming through on the chat that I think are feeding into what we're talking about. And Milne, I do need instructions on which one I should go to first, because I've now finished my beer pretty much. So you need to. And
also, people playing at home, please let us know what your favourite whiskey liqueurs are, and we'll start popping them up on the screen. So don't be shy.
Yeah. Question came in from Ryan while you're mulling over that question. There was, has anyone ever asked you for a whiskey liqueur? They're delicious and nerds seem to know them, but punters, and it's an interesting thing from as a retailer's point of view. When we do Whiskey Fair, we will fly through King's Ginger and Athol Bros and those sort of available brands, and then you'll sell next to nothing the rest of the year while it's sitting on the shelf. Every now and again, you get someone who's looking for. I can't say I've ever been asked for whiskey liqueurs, but people come and ask for brands specifically. But I think it's one of the ultimate categories. I feel like that it needs to be in people's mouths. People need to try it. People will take a punt on a whiskey they've never tried before. People want to try a whiskey liqueur they haven't tried before. But I think because the world is so open, the regulation is so lax, that it could be, there was strawberry flavored or honey flavored or cinnamon flavored. So your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's probably in the on-premise. It's probably the way that you would, if you had someone come in and say, I'm not really a big fan of whiskey. I generally prefer rum, but mixed with Coke or with lemonade or with ginger or something, and sort of rattle off a kind of few ideas that suggest that they probably like slightly sweeter style of drinks and don't like to drink whiskey neat. I'd start them there on a liqueur to just sort of ease their way in. And I think it's the same probably where, people that purchase the bottles at these festivals, when they then take them home, I suspect that that's shared with multiple friends at home and sort of going, oh, I'm not really a big fan, so try this, you'll love this. And it takes that approach where whoever's first had it will share it on again a dozen times with more friends.
We were talking just before we went live about how much they sell at whiskey shows. And it is a lot of the time because of everyone's drinking neat whiskey, and then all of a sudden they have something that is completely different with the higher sugar content, and it just sets your taste buds alight. So Scotty mentioned that he'll sell cases and cases of the liqueurs at the show, and I've seen this happen at Whisky Live, Whisky Fair, that a liqueur always goes down so well on a table at a whiskey show.
I had a running joke with the guys at Dubliner in the UK when I was doing the shows there, and every different show they'd be like, make sure you bring enough Dubliner. And it's like, yeah, no, last time I brought 2 cases, I'll bring 4 cases. And the next show would sell out. It's just like, no, next time I bring more. It's like, yeah, no, I've got 8 cases. We'll definitely have enough. It's like, yeah, sell out. Next time, bring 12 cases, bring 15 cases. I think the most I brought was 20 cases. And that was the only time we ever had half a case left. And it's like any other bottle of whiskey, we were selling 9, maybe 12 bottles if we're lucky.
Yeah.
And it just completely outsells them.
And whiskey is my jam. Just brought up a great point, is the price point. So it's always a fantastic little add-on when they maybe have a $200 budget. They've just bought a bottle for $160, and it's off they come with a $40 bottle of liqueur. So where are we starting, Milne?
I'm trying to drink the Dubliner.
Dubliner?
Yeah, I think it's the
Give us the brand Cell.
The most subtle. It's Irish whiskey. So Dublin is a recently new distillery based in Ireland, in the heart of Dublin, in an area called the Liberties. And this distillery itself only opened in February 2019. So originally using source liquid from Bushmills predominantly, but they've got 3 ranges: Dubliner, which is sort of the younger whiskies, Dublin Liberties Distillery, and Dead Rabbit Irish whiskey as well. This is a whiskey and honeycomb. So honeycomb characters, nice and soft, super easy drinking.
All right.
Because
easy to open though.
Yeah.
Because Irish whiskey for me is probably one of the most muddled categories in the world. Dead Rabbit, that's a distillery, or that's a brand, or what's that?
Dead Rabbit?
Yep.
Collaboration. So it's a collaboration with Sean and I forget his business partner.
Good old Sean.
Pardon?
Did you just hit yourself in the head, Alex? What happened there?
No, I'm good.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, Sean and his business partner who run and own the Dead Rabbit Grocery and Grog in New York. Yep. And Dublin Liberties Distillery. So they
I know the story, but yeah, just the I just don't know much of the rest of it.
No, it's a 5-year-old blend of grain and malt, finished in virgin oak casks. The idea of that was to embellish the story of the journey of the Irish going over to America in the wooden ships. And actually, the guys from the Dead Rabbit actually donate every single penny that they make from that back to charities in Dublin to sort of promote predominantly the arts.
Ice cream. This is honeycomb ice cream.
Yeah.
It's like begging me for vanilla ice cream to pour this all over. And I think that's like this. And we see a lot of honey involved in these liqueurs. Even if it's not on the label XYZ honey infused liqueur, you know, honey is often a key ingredient in these whiskey liqueurs, presumably because it matches the flavor of whiskey particularly well. I'm not basing that on anything but speculation.
Oh, wow.
But we see a lot of honey liqueurs.
He's not done it on the chat. He's messaged me privately, so I'm going to call him out instead. Ollie Chilton, who's the head of blending and product development for Elixir Distillers, just messaged me saying, "Is King's Ginger a whiskey liqueur?" Which it is, because they put whiskey in it. So
I remember pouring that at a whiskey show one year for Berry Brothers and Rudd with DHR. And just going da 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 and ta-da, and everyone's like, whoa, and that's where the sales were got. Like, they just loved it.
It's like a whiskey live with Cooler Swan.
Yeah.
It was
always down the back.
It's a product you'll see nowhere except that one day a year. It's incredible.
Yeah. I've actually got a bottle on the back here that I haven't opened yet that might get opened if we.
You own a bottle of Cool Swan.
One was sent to me this week, rocked up.
Oh, you showed you showed us last night.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, the story. Speaking of liqueurs, and Cool Swan, the story behind a brand like Bailey's, for instance, that's a fascinating story. I don't know the whole details for the stream tonight, but it was like 1971, 1972, where they were trying to develop this. This bloke was trying to develop a what he called a girly drink at the time. And
I was speaking to his daughter just 2 hours ago. So Tom Yago,
Tom Yago,
he created Bailey's, Piat D'Or wine, Johnny Walker Blue Label. There's a fantastic book called That Shit Will Never Sell, which is all about the sort of ad agencies of that period and the random things that they created. But it was, they were tasked with trying to promote the dairy industry of Ireland. And sort of trying to sort of come up with a way to sort of promote that. And
they couldn't get the liqueur and the cream to sit at a room temperature.
Yeah.
And how would you market something that requires that refrigeration from store to home? And that whole story of emulsification and
somehow the sample when they went to Diageo probably would have been, or IDL at the time, to brief this product. They made it in their office in a mug, shoved it into a empty Coke bottle or something, and then just jumped across in the cab. 12 hours, 4 hours or something before the meeting was due to start. And it's just like, here you go, here's your prototype. This is the idea. And it's just classic sort of Mad Men era of flying by the seat of your pants. That just
How do you sell Kerrygold? Turn it into a liqueur. I mean, it was almost like the premise behind promoting the milk industry of building that industry. So it wasn't like, let's take all this Irish spirit and do something with it. It was let's take all this milk and make something of it. And
Ireland was the pioneers of duty free as well. Yeah,
right. There you go. I didn't know that.
So because they were the gateway to the US as well. So the idea of duty free was kind of invented effectively in Irish airports. Anyone you go meet in sort of senior roles in GTR is pretty much all Irish.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Go.
So we know how honeycomb actually, like the candy honeycomb,
right,
actually isn't honeycomb, but we call it honeycomb.
Right.
Which honeycomb's this? Fair call, right? Because it tastes like the candy, but
I suspect the vast majority of commercial liqueurs are not made macerating actual fruit and actual ingredients. Most of them are made using synthetic ingredients, as it were, that create flavor. I don't know the exact breakdown of this product, but I suspect that we're not putting in fresh vats of honey into...
You're like, Alex, don't ask the nerdy questions. Shut up.
No, don't ask questions about honey.
Don't ask questions. So it's 30%, so 17 standard drinks. What do you think?
I dig it.
Buddy, you dig it?
It's like, for me, it's dessert. That's where it sort of sits. But what I really love about these things, and as you know, like I tend to, get excited about distilleries like Linkwood and Ben Nevis and stuff that have a really definitive texture. And when you add the sugar into these whiskey liqueurs, as you add sugar into any liqueur, you get that thickness and you get that
viscosity.
Sort of, that sort of stickiness in your mouth. And that's the bit I think I most enjoy about these sort of liqueurs is that spirit or that liqueur weight, whatever you sort of want to describe it as. So I'm sort of that, like, for me, it's all honeycomb. I shouldn't probably be surprised by that because it says whiskey and honeycomb on the double in a bottle.
Funny that.
But that's what it is. And if you don't like honeycomb, stay away. If you do, jump in.
Yeah. And what's the recommended serve for that? Because that's definitely not a neat drink for me.
I mean, on ice is probably one of the most popular ways that it's drunk. Just chuck a few cubes.
Garnish? Is there garnish? Is there a garnish?
Yeah, you know.
What glass?
Pith,
what
the
kind
pith
of
of an
ice?
orange, not the peel, the pith.
What temperature should you set the air conditioning to before you pour it?
All right.
But I've had it. The weirdest drink I've had it with is like a violet crumble. So it was using this in a shot, so half this and half chocolate liqueur.
Oh wow, mental. All right. Okay, let's try the one that started this shit. Ready?
Wait, hold on. What are we on?
Oh, do you recommend Sheepdog or Fireball next, Andy?
Let's do Sheepdog.
Okay.
It's not like I've tried the three of them as a flight and.
What?
I know it's shocking, but
So, question coming in on the live chat. Oliver asked a clarification. We believe that there is some form of whiskey used in King's Ginger. I couldn't tell you whether it's Scotch or not. It might not be Scotch, but I believe there's some whiskey. But we've been talking about Baileys. Colby Whale asked anything similar to Baileys to recommend. I probably wouldn't say what I'm drinking here tonight has that sort of milk, but there are out there.
Cool Swan.
Cool. In fact, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be a cream liqueur.
I have no idea what Cool Swan is. What you guys are talking about?
So this isn't
it's
a
a
whiskey
white
liqueur.
chocolate liqueur.
So, yeah.
This isn't a whiskey liqueur. The Baileys isn't a whiskey liqueur either, is it?
No.
Or is
No.
it?
It says,
it is. Yeah, it
It
is.
may
It's
have
Irish whiskey.
started as,
It's
but
an Irish whiskey liqueur.
yeah, we all did our research for this, didn't we?
Yeah. I did.
Continue, Scotty. Sorry.
Yeah, it's made with Irish whiskey.
Yeah, Cool Swan doesn't use the word whiskey on the bottle. I think that just gives them the freedom to use any sort of spirit or aged spirit that they'd like to. But that's a good recommendation. But moving on, Karina Liotta says Sheepdog is good for shots. Now, I'm going to admit I've never had a Sheepdog before in my life. Now, this is going to be my first.
I've had plenty of Sheepdogs, but not in a liquor.
This is
time to raise the woof.
My first dogging, so to speak.
Now, hey,
Waiting
can I
all
ask a
day for that
question?
one.
My first dogging. For those in the UK, we apologise profusely. For those in Australia, that reference is going to be lost.
I have a question. I don't know whether I dreamt this or it actually happened or it was in one of those crazy, stupid moments that I have that actually don't exist in my life. But did I go past a sheepdog van, like a fluffy sheepdog van on a highway?
Yeah. So next up in our series of strange vehicles, we used to have the Fireball fire truck.
I've seen Luke do his thing on the front of that. That was great.
Once broke down in a tunnel, and someone from Diageo was just like, "You bastard, I'm stuck behind you in a tunnel because your truck is broken down." But we now have the sheepdog van. So we, in honor of Dumb and Dumber, we got a van and fully rugged it up to look like a dog. And our little sheepdog man is out and about. I think it's in Queensland at the moment.
Okay, so I definitely did not dream that.
Definitely did see that.
Okay,
Yeah.
fantastic. I do love that it's Sheepdog peanut butter whiskey, 35% alcohol, 70 wolf crossed out to proof. So that's pretty cute on the bottle.
We're all about the doggy puns.
Reading from the back, peanut butter with whiskey, blending peanut butter whiskey. Yeah,
Yeah,
kidding.
kidding.
Yeah, kidding. I don't know. I have no idea what accent to be kidding in, but probably not Australian. We thought the idea sounded a little nice to grab a bottle of Sheepdog peanut butter whiskey and wolf down as a chilled shot or over ice. So there we are.
Can we note that it's whiskey with an E?
Pardon?
Sorry. It is whiskey with an E, but go Bailey, just repeat that, sorry.
Okay.
Do you know how it's macerated? Do you know how they actually get the peanut butter into it?
Don't ask questions.
What they do is they get a little drill and they hollow out each peanut and they pour whiskey into there. Then they put it into their brick houses for between 4 to 6
We can't-
years
I
rotating.
can't hunt.
yeah, it's definitely sitting in a rick house for 6 years. That's
They,
definitely what's happened here.
They waterboard the peanuts with whiskey and butter.
Yeah, and then they individually, as a team of just 3 people, individually crack each peanut, releasing the whiskey back into the bottle.
At this point,
Yeah,
Andy
we-
wants to die, but Andy, do you have a real answer to this?
No, we shave about 30% of the shell, and then that 30% goes into the whiskey, but not the inner 70% of the shell, because that's contains dangerous levels of paint. And yeah, no, I don't know. Tastes like peanut butter. Come on. I know that.
All right, let's do this.
I'm 99% sure that if you have a peanut allergy, you don't need to worry. We
I
can't.
mean, he's not 100%
Can't legally say
sure.
that.
Shut
But
the
he's-
front gate. Really?
There's no allergy warning on the back of the bottle.
Yeah,
These are
it's just
they-
the
they don't
pregnancy
have-
warning.
Yeah,
You
and
don't
these are
have
not
to
sample
physically put
bottles.
peanuts
These are
in to make it taste like peanuts.
This is not a sample bottle. This is a 200 ml. Like you can buy this.
Yeah.
It's market ready.
Well,
A little
Oh,
pocket
yeah.
rocket, as we call it. You've got a little 50 mil for on your way to the market.
I'm actually really nervous about trying
little
this.
pocket rocket for your way to the
It's such
footy.
an expensive way to serve whiskey, but it does serve for the pocket rockets, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's like the convenience store. You have all that sort of small,
Yeah,
add-on
yeah.
buys on the way to the counter.
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
Is it
It's
wrong that I
200
smell
ml Sheepdog.
hazelnuts? Not
Yeah.
peanuts?
I'm
smelling the wrong nuts.
It's like I can't quite figure it out. It's like it's far more whiskey-esque than I thought it was going to be. I thought this was going to be like a dollop of peanut butter. Really, is what I had coming in my mind to this, but it's a lot more whiskey-esque.
So, and this is an example of brand extension as well. So Sheepdog already exists and has existed for a long time. And they had another one, didn't they? Didn't they have like one called Pig's Ear or something as well, like a different sort of something?
Oh,
like
no, you're thinking about sheep dip. That
Oh,
is,
sorry,
sheep
sorry.
dip is Weems.
Sorry, you're right. All good.
This is standalone, isn't it? This is
Yeah, standalone brand. We created it in the US a few years back. Like for context, we're pretty as a company, we're quite famous for finding duds and turning them into massive brands. So like Fireball, by example, was a last minute addition into a deal with another distiller, and we were buying some distilling sites and brands, and at the last minute this was chucked in. We were like, have that as well, and it wasn't named Fireball, it had a different name, and we rebranded it, turned it into Fireball, and it's now one of the fastest growing drinks in Australia.
Before it was called Fireball, was it called WD-40 or is that just a rumor?
Wait,
No, I
do
think
you mean that in that it can fix anything? That a bottle of Fireball and oil, whatever your problem is, you'll find a way.
No, because it's pretty close to antifreeze.
It'll grease all your problems. There you
It
go.
brings all your problems away.
Question coming in: is there butter in this? No, I don't think so.
No.
Like on the nose, no. And I think it's not a. I mean, it says peanut butter whiskey, but it's more nutty than peanut butter.
I feel like you get it in the texture a bit, but I think most liqueurs have that in the texture form anyway.
Do you find it is it thicker than a whiskey? Is the viscosity sort of like thicker than whiskey? Yeah.
Yeah.
The sugar again.
What is that proof? 35%. Yeah.
Yeah.
35.
Um,
And as a weird addition,
70 woof.
70 roof. Yep.
I think one of the best things that all three of these, in terms of like going a bit more sort of fancy as your cocktails, espresso martini, swap out your gin or your vodka,
And just straight swap your
and-
sugar.
and put in that as your spirit base. It is so good. And to be honest, any whiskey liqueur works so well with that.
I have a question based on this level. This is a bit of a bigger question that not just applies to whiskey liqueurs or liqueurs, but just food and drinks in general. This says whiskey with natural flavors. Now, what is a natural flavor? Because I've always been a little bit of the thought that, okay, you've got natural flavors that come from the earth, but then you've got artificial coloring and artificial flavors that are in like your party mix lollies. But if everything has come from earth in some way, shape or form, it might have been things from earth that are then put into laboratory and turned into something, but it has to have come from somewhere in the start. So what point of that processing does a flavour become not natural anymore? Does it become an artificial flavouring instead of a natural flavouring?
What the hell, mate? I mean, what the hell? That's like asking what does organic mean? It's one of those things. It's like one of those.
Well, I find myself 4 more weeks of lockdown. I'm solving the meaning of life, and this is where we start.
It's quite easy. Like so. There's a very famous. What's the? I know the brand, but I can't now think of the product. Almond liqueur. What are they called? They're called
Amaretto.
Amaretto. That's it. There's a very famous amaretto that doesn't use almonds, and they're not allowed to call themselves an almond liqueur, but they go about it through a different method, which has exactly the same flavor but using a different ingredient. It's like we quite often use capsicums for. I can't even remember capsicums are used for a different flavor. Again, is nothing to do with capsicum, but it creates a kind of like chili spice sort of character. So that's a natural flavor you can use if you're using a plant extract or if you're using something that is from an organic matter. Then that's absolutely fine. But if you're using something that's an E, starts with an E number, that's synthetic flavor.
Although they'll tell you that certain E's don't have flavors. E doesn't. More peanut butter shots needed. They don't carry don't carry flavor. They're just for textural reasons and blah blah blah. Yeah.
Well, everyone's saying it's really good for shots.
Look, even the bottle says that's what it's meant to do. You very rarely see that in these days of RSA and responsibility.
Yeah.
Slam it down.
We do not encourage speed drinking, but do it.
Oh, sorry. Wolf down.
Wolf down.
Wolf down.
I
think it's great. I think this sort of irreverent kind of like fun angle it takes exactly what it needs.
That's why I had to have it. I was like, it's pretty fucking cool. And again, at the Sheepdog van or whatever it is, truck, I didn't know whether it was a real thing or in my sleep. It's pretty cool.
Nice.
I think Bailey, you cracked on. I wasn't going to mention the word yet, but the word fun is the most important thing about this. And I know you and I have spoken about this a lot, and I know Alex and Milne, we've had individual conversations about this. We live in this world that in the past 5 years, in all our various little roles, has been quite serious about whiskey. We've dealt with some pretty premium whiskeys at, tastings where, it's all very regimented and that sort of thing. And in the past, few years, we've been actually trying to make sure people are still having fun with whiskey. A lot of people are, whiskey cocktails and that sort of thing. It was meant to happen last year. This year, guaranteed, whiskey highball. I've started seeing the ads. It was meant to happen last summer. I think COVID, everyone pushed it back. The premixed whiskey highball is coming in a big way. Like seltzer last year, this is going to be all about whiskey highballs. When this is almost sort of staring us in the face, going, you're trying to reverse engineer this serious whiskey into fun, but there already is the fun options out there that aren't meant to be taken too seriously. Their names are puns. Everything about them is, marketed to an enjoyment audience, not necessarily serious. And I think sometimes, I can get into how do I make this serious whiskey fun when there's already the options out there?
And I think that's why these two brands do so well, or will do so well. Sorry, back to front. Is because they're fun. Like when I know it sounds really silly, but King's Ginger, is it fun?
Yeah, absolutely.
Drambuie, is it fun?
No. King's Ginger and Drambuie are not fun. I mean, they're just.
I tell you what, though, I didn't realize they've rebranded.
Yeah, they're very stuffy. Very stuffy.
But
I didn't realize King's Ginger had rebranded, and their bottle looks slick.
Yeah, I also think that we're going to always think of that sort of bottle as stealing from our parents' liquor cabinet for a while. So they'll have to sort of renew their love with the younger version. Yeah, sorry, the younger generation. All right, I've been dreading this all night, but let's do it.
Why did you dread it?
Because I don't love the brand. It's because I insanely don't like cinnamon.
Unless
it's on a donut with sugar.
Last time I do remember a litre bottle of it sitting around your place once, Alex. So it's certainly.
Yes, I'm sorry. That was at my birthday party, and Andy brought it.
No,
Yeah.
I
No,
bought stacks of minis. I didn't bring a litre.
Remember, everyone got in the pool afterwards, and everyone saw your Fireball tattoo as well, Alex. So,
Yeah.
On top of the jack,
What were you doing looking there, Scott?
I was on the ground by that point. I was just I could only look in one direction.
So it's nothing against the brand. I think they do great things. I've loved seeing Luke on the front of a big old Chevy truck, which is wonderful. They do great support with bartenders. But for me, it's cinnamon.
That was my first month in the job, and I got told, "Do you want to come along and help out at this Fireball calendar thing?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." Didn't have a clue what was going on. I was given a pair of budgies and told to meet at this random location. There was a kind of dodgy truckers car park near an airport, and turned up, and there was the entire team from Howlin' Wolf and Wollongong. They're in just their budgie smugglers. And Luke just came out to me and was like, "Oh, hey mate, how you doing?" It's just like, get on the van." And that was my introduction to Fireball. And then all of my friends from the UK started sending me pictures of me wearing nothing but budgie smugglers on top of a fire truck.
I actually have not seen you in that picture.
I think August and December.
We're going to have to find that and put that up on the Whisky Roundtable socials.
Yeah.
I do have a pair of Fireball budgie smugglers that were gifted to me by one of your predecessors, Milne.
We all saw them at my birthday party.
No. Okay, they're on my head. They're on my head at that point, but I haven't actually worn them properly yet. I'm waiting for the grand debut. I think I haven't quite found the occasion.
Yeah, okay. Scotty, just going back to your previous point, whilst you guys are pouring your Fireballs, you said something about the fun element of these brands, of rather serious whiskey brands embracing the fun product lineage of what they can create. I remember about 2 years ago, and it's still a thing, when I saw the Cavalan whiskey highball cans, and it must have been about 2 years ago when I first saw them, and they're still on market over there. And whiskey highballs are massive in Taiwan, and they're massive in lots of different parts of Asia. And I thought it's fascinating that Cavalan as a brand is very much perceived as a very premium whiskey. It's all in that sort of $250, $350 Australian dollars per bottle. Yet you're seeing these, whiskey highballs. I don't know how much a bottle of Cavalan costs, to be honest. It can be up to $500-$600, I'm sure. But you can see, these
sometimes.
And Suntory is exactly the same in Japan. Everyone looks at Suntory and goes, "Oh my god, it's the most revered and ever increasing price of Japanese whiskey." They make fantastic single malt that makes it over here, but Kakabin is their bread and butter. That's mentally huge, and that's and
we need more of that. We need more, I think, brand extension and premiumization in the highball range.
And funny enough, the highball was not created, but there was one. The story I heard was they were doing some research as to why their sales weren't performing that well as a company for Suntory in Japan, way before it went global. And they kind of looked around and went, what's working, what's not. And there was this one town, I think it was Kyoto, but I may be wrong. And it's doing really well. It's absolutely flying. What's going on there? And they went to a few bars, and everyone was serving it in highballs. And they were like, this seems to work. And they used that and just pushed it out to the rest of the country. And it's just realize what's going on, do a bit of research and understand. And that's how it pushed down.
Yeah, precisely.
It's an interesting segue, Matt, as we get onto Fireball, because if you got Sheepdog, for example, I'll bring that bottle up again. Sheepdog, and you probably can't see, but then it says peanut butter whiskey. Fireball, on the other hand, Fireball, nice and big, and then in much smaller font is cinnamon flavored whiskey. And almost think Fireball is a brand that has transcended its own category. I don't think you're converting Fireball drinkers into whiskey drinkers necessarily, whereas I think you are converting Sheepdog drinkers into whiskey drinkers and Bramble drinkers. And on your point there, Matt, it seems interesting in that brand extension. Macallan have released whiskey liqueurs that were exceptional, and now it's sort of like it was in the past. We don't really talk about that anymore, and it's not something we do. and it's almost like they're almost trying to distance themselves a little bit from it. And
I just remember that amber liqueur was something else. That's awesome. Probably my favorite liqueur of all time. I'll be honest.
I haven't seen your face light up like that.
Oh, it's something else. It's so
good.
It
was like, whoa!
Oh, it's such a ridiculous liqueur. It was maple and walnut. A Macallan with maple and walnut, and it was called their amber liqueur. Had the most ridiculous cork, very Macallan, very sort of over the top, massive cork on the top made of wood.
Opulence.
Opulence. And it was ridiculous. But yeah, you're right. And I love that stuff though. I love that premiumization, that extension of something fun from a brand that is often, especially a brand like Macallan.
And what you obviously don't have what we have right now, thanks to shipping delays, but you do have the Kilchoman.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is, for all intents and purposes, Kilchoman is a premium Islay farm distillery.
Yeah.
And so what is their take on a whiskey liqueur look like?
It's it's fantastic. I need a bottle of it. I'll be honest. I don't think I've actually tasted it before now. No, that's not true. Once before, but it was a different scenario. But this is super spicy, really good sort of fruit spice going on in there. Bramble and fruit spiciness.
But this is a far more serious, in the sense that they're properly macerating fruit and doing it properly. There's an English producer that does some of the most amazing fruit liqueurs, and he picks wild fruits and he sort of goes to these certain areas, and this is the right time to pick this. And I spent 3 days picking this type of berry, and it yielded me 7 bottles of 500 ml liqueur.
Yeah. Oh,
and this is my release.
Yeah,
and it's phenomenal. But it's definitely in that category of it's super.
But that's a really interesting point. We have so many.
Blackgate do one, don't they? A Kwandong.
They used to Kwandong liqueur, but way too hard, way too labour intensive for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, was that whiskey or rum base or just spirit base?
It was a Kwandong liqueur.
Okay,
it wasn't a whiskey liqueur. But this similar sort of point, so many distilleries, and we see it really vividly in Australia because we're the modern industry, at least, is a very young industry. People are making gins, and they're talking about macerations of botanicals and fruit and that sort of thing. We're talking about whiskey liqueurs. There's no legislation about what the word whiskey needs to be. So you could put the whiskey liqueur on in. Am I right? You could make a whiskey liqueur out of 1-year-old whiskey.
No, the Kilchoman's new make, and they call it spirit liqueur as a result. That's protected still as the word. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're saying that this is aged over.
Well, but it's American. But it's American whiskey, so there's no age needed.
Well, actually, sorry, Scotty. On that point, I'd like to actually ask Andy, which mega Canadian distillery is Fireball made at?
More than one.
Okay, there you go.
No, it's interesting. The legislation is actually very convoluted and strange, and for much of it, it's about where the product is finished as well, rather than where it started.
Of course.
So there's a lot of, as Ollie pointed out earlier, he's pretty sure that the whiskey element of King's Ginger is coming from Holland, I think it was. And it's in the same way that a very large production of rum is coming from a great man called Carsten in Holland as well, who is a phenomenal person that can access amazing rums. But
Holland isn't real, so that's a bit different. But
in terms of that where you can get it from and where it's the thing. But so it's where the product makes its final stages of process, and this is where Japanese whiskey is kind of pretty confusing in this process as well. You buy your whiskey from Scotland, you bottle it in Japan, but the final process has happened in Japan, so it's a product of Japan. It's not made in Japan.
I'd love to do a side by side. I'd love to do a side by side of a Fireball and Crown Royal cinnamon. Just putting that out there. Okay.
We don't own it. We don't own it, so it's definitely separate in terms of production. But yeah, and it gets even more convoluted in terms of Canadian whiskey. You can add a certain amount of additives to Canadian whiskey and still call it Canadian whiskey. So it doesn't have to be called a liqueur.
Oh, no, Canadian
whiskey can be, I think, 12 or 18% additional things, and it still is classified as Canadian whiskey. So, yeah, the rules and legislation is crazy.
All right.
So,
Cheers.
yeah, cool. Cheers.
So 5 more shots.
Cheers, kids.
Remember, everyone, we're in lockdown for another 4 weeks. Get your shots.
Get on it.
Get your shots.
You can get it in 50 ml, 6-pack 50 ml, 200 ml, 700 ml, 1 litre, 1.75 litre now.
Oh, you guys bring in the 1.75s.
We just brought it in.
I'm a huge fan of large format bottles. We need to see
handle.
more large format bottles on market. Like I'm in general. I own
That's
a
gonna give
handle.
me reflux.
I've got a
Your
handle
face
of
is not
wild
happy.
turkey. One of those big old.
There's something special. Like
it's awesome.
Tito's is like it's a very special vodka for myself and my wife. We got married in New York, and she's a massive vodka drinker, and so there was a moment of walking through duty free, and I was like, "Do I pick up a handle of Tito's vodka?" And I was just like, "It'd take us forever to get through that." But it was kind of that sort of split moment, like, "Do I try and come back to the UK with this just like handle of Tito's?"
Absolutely.
And it was like $15 as well. It's the stupid thing about American and their taxation. It's like it's pence, you know.
Oh yeah.
Sense.
When I was in the UK, I saw one of those 4.5 litre bottles of Laddie 10. And it was sitting in a bottle shop. It just this one of those 4.5 litre bottles of Laddie 10, and I looked at it and I looked at the price on it, and I went, "Yeah, I can afford the bottle." But then I was like, the shipping back to Australia and that thing is going to lay me. It wasn't just the excise I was worried about, of course, which it was 7 bottles worth of excise, but it was the fact that it was whatever it was, probably 45 kilos of glass and.
Well, every
Can't you just
Arbeck
put
day.
samples on it?
Yeah, one giant sample.
This is a big sample. I mean, like it technically is a sample size if we're talking about the distillery's output.
Doesn't work in terms of customs. Don't really agree with that one, I'm afraid. There's a lot of samples that I've had sent and they do not make it through.
That's my favorite one is the collectible glass.
I remember
With a shitload of liquid in it.
Arbeck got themselves into a lot of trouble over the years with their, not themselves, but it was for Arbeck Day. They release 5 litre Arbeck to all the Arbeck houses.
I got them at Milne.
I've got one here. I've got one of the 4.5 litre Arbeck here. They're great.
But the problem is all the Arbeck houses that it was given to them to then pour out to customers throughout the day. And most of them would just take the bottle, put it in the corner, and then just open a case of normal and just go, "Well, I've now got a collector's edition that they've never produced." And I think at one point they then did, I think it was Oro Verdes, they did as a gold bottle.
I remember the gold bottle.
And they sent it out to PR, and all the PRs just went, "Wow, keeping that." And started auctioning the gold bottles because it was rare. And I think the following year they then decided, "Oh, we come up with a solution. We've got this unique code on every single bottle," but it was just a sticker at the bottom, and several just went, "Cool." Sticker gone. Just
no such luck.
Yeah.
I sometimes love going out to Costco just to see the giant size or large format everything, like including bottles of Jack Daniels and wine, and that's why I love Costco. Large format.
Large format.
I'm going back to Sheepdog.
Yeah,
See,
wow.
I've gone back to Dubliner. I think that's my pick.
I'm going to go the Dubliner too, actually, out of those 3. Fireball, it was always going to be out, unfortunately, because it feels like I just ate a teaspoon of cinnamon, which means it's actually cinnamon flavored.
Isn't that the whole challenge, like the cinnamon challenge, where you have to eat a teaspoon of cinnamon?
Ugh. Yikes. Anyway, the Dubliner is my favorite. I definitely think so.
I think I wouldn't necessarily the Dublin as my favourite
Of the
but it's
3
the one.
tonight.
But out of the 3 tonight, it's the one I'm going back to. I think it's probably the easiest of the lot.
100%.
So it's like honey is not a huge departure from what flavors we get in whiskey anyway. How many times there's a honey or some honey derivative come up in a tasting note or something we look at. So it's just a different take. Whereas peanut butter and
I was wondering when he'd come in. Sorry.
John.
Welcome, John.
John dog balls. It's been a million years since we've said hello, John. I hope you're well.
For those not aware, this is my boss.
And you know, I know
It
that
checks in the mail, right, John?
yeah. Like in Sydney at the moment, obviously reps and BAs can't get out and go visit bars because they're closed and bottle stores because of COVID. So this is where your sample budget has gone this week, John, to these 4 idiots, pretty much.
Now, if we're talking,
Didn't even ask for permission.
Andrew, best behaviour now. It's okay. It's okay.
if we're talking about things being added to whiskey, didn't Archie Rose release their blasphemy today?
They did. They did.
Yes. Now that's coffee and whiskey, right? But there's no sugar added to it. I haven't had the.
Both? I thought it was in a coffee
I haven't had
cask.
the honour.
No, it's coffee with the whiskey.
It's coffee, but it's at 40%, I believe.
And it's not considered a liqueur because there's no sugar added or anything.
Yeah, no, it's just a
spirit product,
a hybrid spirit creation, basically.
Mm.
I haven't tried. I've got some coming, but I haven't tried it
Yes.
as yet.
There's some here somewhere in the office. I just don't know where it is. There's
some people that have said that it's absolutely banging, and two of my favourite beverages, coffee and whiskey. I actually can't wait for it.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
I know. I remember them telling me a couple of years ago now. Starwood, I think, had tried to do something in terms of whiskey barrels that had had coffee beans in them previously. Whether they were fresh or spent, I'm not sure.
They never, it never passed the muster. It wasn't much good.
No, I wonder what came of that or why how that fell by the wayside. But
wasn't a very good
Rose
product.
are killing it in terms of, obviously there's that, and then Maddie, you've had, your first .1 for. It's not. Is it .1 for Archie Rose, or is it .1 that's something?
No, it's .1 for Archie, and it's .1 for Australian whiskey. Yeah, we've got casks all over the place, but they're the first off the rank, which is great, and it's exciting for us, and that's coming up in a week and a half.
Yeah, but is it any good?
I like it. The panel loved it. It got
Average.
rating scores. I'm happy with it. So yeah, it's like a bowl of Cocoa Pops and milk for me.
I'm still salty as anything that the label of Whiskey Champs is it's about a centimetre away from me. The picture ends and I am there, and I'm just like, cool.
Just like the little boy that fell out of the boat, you're just not in it.
Yeah, just not important enough for his label.
Here we go. And Scotty's front and centre on the labelling.
Front and centre, perfectly positioned.
There he is. There's Scotty.
I still bought it because I love Longmorn, but
because you can see your ear.
I reckon if you look close now, I'm just going to pencil myself.
We're all members. I mean, you guys have all got a bottle, so this is there's Scotty and Karina up the front, and of course Kathleen Davies is right at the front of the label as well. You can spot a good 50 faces on the front there, but sorry, Andy, you were on the flavour strip on the side there. I think you got cropped.
How long did it take you in Photoshop just going? One more pixel, one more pixel. Just to make sure the space wasn't on the label.
Got him out. Okay, we're good now, guys.
Print.
Shifted people from one side to the other to square it up, even though I was there.
I replaced your face with Blaney's actually, so it was fine. Then you got photoshopped out all in the end anyway, so that's all right. I think Blaney's on the label, maybe just.
No, he's not, because he was about to present.
He was standing on stage, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that all been pushed back and Yeah,
23rd of October. Half trade, half members. I mean, a lot of distillers coming. It's going to be a huge night. It's great. We've got some big things coming, but that's 23rd of October. All things sort of going well for Sydney. Yeah, 23rd of October, unless we're not able to, but then we'll push it out again. We'll do what we can.
Yeah.
And Whiskey is My Jam I'm pretty sure you're correct on that Boat Rocker. The Ramjet. I'm almost certain that's where it went.
I've never had any Boat Rocker whiskies. I've had a bunch of their beers,
I haven't had their whiskeys. I've had their beers. Yeah.
I've had their gin.
All right. That's gin. Who cares? Welcome to Whisky Roundtable.
I
am definitely starting to love gin. I care about gin now too.
Gin's great.
I'm about to bring in a new gin, so I should probably start caring about gin. But I just,
he says while his boss is watching.
Yeah. Oh, John, I love gin. I love gin, John. Love it.
The problem
I
is
don't
what you
know.
said
I
there
think
was,
in
I'm about to
a
bring
martini, in a martini, it's absolutely delicious. I would happily drink multiple and many martinis, and Negronis. But I just fail to get excited. I think the volume, I'm just sort of saturated by it's too much choice and variety that I'm just like, I'd rather go back to basics almost and just let's just hit the classics again. Whereas I kind of I feel
it is good to go back to a classic London dry every so often. Just that.
Yeah, I just feel that if there's another lemon myrtle or wild pepperberry or it just sorry.
You sound shook about gin. It's very interesting.
You're doing it wrong, mate.
Yeah.
You're doing it wrong.
I agree with Scotty there.
And I agree with John. Whiskey over gin every day. Damn straight.
Agree with that. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful.
All right,
guys. Well, we talked for an hour.
Yeah, just quickly to address Whiskey's My Jam. Speaking of pushed out Oak Barrel Whiskey Fair, which is, of course, as it is every year, slated for the last weekend of August, which obviously means it's not fucking happening this year, right? We're going to mark it with some virtual things, but we are going to do something towards the end of the year again, time and work pruning it. It won't be called Whiskey Fair, but it will probably be called something around the Oak Barrel's 65th anniversary that we'll do something there. But Whiskey Fair 2 years in a row probably. But I think actually that gives us an opportunity, Bailey, what we were talking about 2 years ago, to reinvent the whole thing.
Reinvent the wheel a bit. Yes, indeed.
Bigger and better. So, what's the
So it's now named the Sheepdog Whiskey Fair, I think.
Yeah, I heard that's correct. I'm getting information through right now. Sheepdog Whiskey Fair. Yep.
Yeah.
There's a vast array of products on.
It's actually called Cattle Dog Fair in honor of the late Tommy Rodonicus. So only spirits and wines and beers with farm-related motifs will be allowed.
Interesting. Okay, on that note,
the quality content that we put out, guys, far out. I won't push for a 4 of us again.
It's amazing they come back, isn't it?
If you haven't tuned out yet, you really should. All right.
Yeah.
By the way, the fucking Olympics are on, so what the fuck are you doing watching this? I mean, I'm not even watching this. I'm watching the Olympics on the second screen.
We've won all our goals already for the day. It's up to the...
However, next week, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to tell you who, but I have teed up, I would say probably one of the greatest guys in whiskey. I'll leave you to guess who that is. He has paved...
Give us a hint.
He has paved the way for so many ambassadors worldwide.
Throw in an extra thing that's saying whose birthday was yesterday.
Okay, right. Good job.
Happy. Yeah, no, it's fun. Many people have birthdays.
So
happy birthday, James Bunton, for yesterday.
So Dennis Malcolm on next week. That's great. And we'll see you all next week. Thank you so much.
But before we finish, it's also a very special episode today because today is Papa Milne's birthday as well. So.
Oh, happy birthday, Daddy Milne.
Oh, happy birthday, Puddles Senior.
Yeah, happy birthday, Papa Puddles.
Puddles Senior.
Papa
Good
Puddles.
on you.
Shit.
Oh, dear. We were going to make it backfire on you.
We were.
Thank you for tuning in to this absolute shit show, ladies and gentlemen.
It has been a pleasure and a pressure. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you so much.
Drink whiskey and have fun.
I'm going to go have an antacid
Tonight.